And in today's module 3, we will be discussing on how to actually create an employee payroll, gradebook, and also sales report. Now, we'll be making use of pivot tables and pivot charts. You may ask, what are these? Now, pivot tables obviously are summary tables. What it does is it helps you summarize a large data set by breaking this data set into smaller chunks and help you derive the insights that you want to get out of the data. We'll have a hands-on on that so you can actually see what that means. Now, you might ask again, what are pivot charts? Pivot charts are basically just pictorial representation in forms of charts of your data, and this can be represented in form of pie charts, histogram, bar charts, and many more. Now, we'll be starting with the employee payroll. So now let's get into it. Now, let's assume that this is how a payroll data set is, okay? Now, what we are trying to do is we're trying to find out what is the standard pay of each of the employee, their overtime, if they have worked, and how to calculate overtime, and what will be their total pay at the end of the week. Now, this company, standard working hours is 37.5 a week, and we are calculating for just 1 week's pay, which is for 5 working days at 7.5 hours a day, multiplied by 5, and that gives you 37.5 hours in a week. Now, the names and the numbers here are all fictional. They're just to aid us in the purpose of this exercise. Now, we'll begin to calculate the standard pay. Now, how do you do that? Very simple, just a simple multiplication formula. We're going to say equal sign the hourly rate multiply by the number of hours that the standard working hours that they all did. And this is the standard pay. This we're assuming that every one of them obviously hits their standard hours. So one way to do it is either you can you bring your cursor down here. Once it gives you this plus sign, double click and that comes up. That's one way to do it. Or you can do a drag down. Bring it here and then you do a drag down. So whatever that is best, easy for you, you can actually apply any of those steps. Okay. Now we move over to how to calculate an overtime in hours. So how do we get to know? Because now we can see that as much as each of them, the standard hours of the company is 37.5 hours, and any other time you work, it's an overtime. Now we can see that each of these employee, JP, Paul, Tom, Sam, and John, have their total hours that they have worked as well. Maybe there is a clock in and a clock out, and that's how we're able to get this data. Okay. Now we need to now then know which of these employees actually have overtime. Now we're going to write a simple if statement to be able to get this out for us. All right, so we're going to come here and then we're going to say equal sign and if statement. Remember, we have treated if statements in our previous module too, but just we're going to throw more insights as well to this. So you open your bracket and we're going to put a logical test. Remember, I said that what Excel helps you to do is it tries to guide you on what to do at every stage, especially when writing formulas as well. Okay, now we're going to define our logical test. Now we're going to say if JP, who has worked 38 hours, as total hours he has worked, is greater. If it's greater than the normal 37.5 hours, then I want Excel to do a subtraction for me and return the value that is being subtracted from the hours worked and the standard hours. So I'm going to come back here and say, click on the F4 minus the standard hours. So whatever the value is, it would give me that value. So I'm using relative referencing. Okay, we have also discussed that in our module 2 to get to do it. Just instead of having to type 31.5 minus this, that would take a whole lot of time. So now this has become my true value. I'm going to say if not, if at the end of the day Excel does it and the work hours worked is not greater than the standard, okay, you know what, just return 0 for me. Okay, so if the value is false, return 0, and I'm going to close the bracket and say enter. So Excel has done it maths and it has brought out that JP Ken had 1 hour in overtime. So I'm also going to click down to autofill that for me. Now we're going to calculate what an overtime pay should be. Now it depends on the company, it depends on their policies or the country and all that. But here in the UK, for example, for an instance, when an employee works over 37.5 hours, the hourly rate increases. So you get paid 1.5 added to your normal hourly rate. So that is just a fixed policy here in the UK for most companies that obviously use that to encourage overtime in their company. So now this is what we're going to do. Just to, first of all, we're going to just calculate how much an overtime, the new rates, how much will be the new rates whenever an employee overshoots their normal standard hours. Very easy to do. So just an equal sign, okay? With an equal sign, you click on the hourly wage. So we're going to reference C4. You're going to say multiply by 1.5. Okay, so that means it's an hour and a half of the hourly wage, and then you say enter. So you see that the new pay for each of the employee is 1.5. Now most companies might say 0.5 as their overtime, so it depends on whatever their overtime pay, depending on the country, the policy, the organization, but generally that is most common is usually 1.5, 1.5. So the meaning that every time each of these employee work, for example, JP had 1 hour in overtime, Paul had Smith had 5 hours extra in overtime. So what you then do is you plus this, you do this formula we've just done, and then do an addition and put this number, and it gives you whatever that pay should be. Now we know we have a picture of what the overtime is. We will not then add the hours that the extra hour they have worked. So we're going to come here and then say plus 1. Now the reason I have to start with a multiplication first before using an addition is because I'm following the rule of using board mass. Okay, so you can see that in board mass, the M is the multiplication. It comes first, and you should obviously treat that first before you work on your addition. Okay, so that's the reason why we started with a multiplication. So once you're then done with that, you say enter. So you can see that at the end of the day, the overtime that JP Ken has overworked, apart from his standard pay of this, is now 25 pounds or dollars, depending on what currency, but we'll just use dollar for instance for this purpose. Okay, or and what we can then do is we can do an autofill down to drop down another. Give me a second. Okay, yeah. Now you see, if you check, you can see that what it has done, it has repeated the cell, the value across all cells as 25. Okay, and that's because I added 1 here because I just saw 1 here, so I just decided to just add it in the formula bar here, and it should just do it right. Yes, it will get the right one, but you see, when you've got thousands of rows, you can't have to keep going on here. You then come here and then you now then type in 5, and then you come, it works it out. It's going to take a whole lot of time to do. Okay, now the best way to do, okay, I'm just going to delete this and this. Now the best way to do it is why I always talk about the relative referencing. To reference yourself, it makes life easy. In case if you got like thousands of rows, you want to do something, or you can just quickly then do that, and it will auto-fill that for you. So I'm just going to auto-reference this one. So I've added obviously my addition sign there, and I'm going to auto-fill relative reference that, and I'm going to say enter. Okay, and then when I then click this to auto-fill, you see it gives me the right one. Now I also want you to see something here as well. You see that right here, okay, it gives me 24, but we all know that John Young did not, he even worked less than the 37.5. So meaning that what we are going to do is we are going to add another if statement to help us fix this problem. Okay, so these are the things you need to, so whenever you do something, you need to test your data to ensure that it's correct and all that. So that's why you need to, sometimes it's best to just put a formula there that just helps you, solve whatever problem that might want to occur and all that. So this is correct, okay? But you see, when it comes here, we've got 0. It interprets it as, okay, you know what? I still give you 24. And that is totally not correct. So what we're going to do is this. Don't worry about it. What we're going to do is just come here and just type in if. All right? Or, just for the purpose, just so it doesn't become very confusing, I'm going to just clean up this one, and I'm just going to redo it again, adding an if statement again, okay? So that it becomes very clearer. So I'm going to say if. Now, I'm going to say G4. So I'm going to reference this and say, if this is, if it's higher and all that, just return whatever value it is, okay, of the overtime pay. So this is just what I'm going to reference. I'm going to reference each of the cell. I'm going to say, you know what, check this cell. If this cell passes, the checks of being over the normal standard hours, okay, just add the 1.5 to it and then give me the value of my total pay. If not, leave it as 0. That's just the story I'm just going to do here. So you check the cell and perform this action. Okay, that's what I'm just saying. That's the logic text I'm giving instead of the greater and all that. I'm telling Excel, check the cell and return the value. Okay. So now if G4, and we're going to put the value now, we're going to say if G4, remember how to calculate the overtime. You come here, click on this, because the hourly wage multiplied by the 1.5, which, like I told you, here in the UK, basically that's like, most companies get to use that. Some even just use 0.5. It just depends. So you just need to figure out, wherever company or wherever country you're watching this from, what's the overtime pay that is being paid. So once I then do that plus, and I'm going to reference this G4 again so that I don't make that mistake of putting 1. I'm just going to relative reference this as well. And I'm going to say, okay, you know what? This is what I want. Okay, if you check this, and yes, it passes all the checks of it's over 37.5 hours. There is an overtime. Calculate the overtime that calculate the overtime, extra payments, that I have, that this employees have worked. If not, you know what, just give me 0. Okay, and that will be the first value. Close it, and it does it for you. Now, if we fill this down, you see that Excel fuses that for you as 0 because it has checked. Now if you look at this, what Excel has done is, it has checked that, okay, this value of 0, it goes in and check that formula. You see, that's one reason I told you should use a formula for this, because if you do not use a formula for this, then you will have issues in terms of if you're going to try to check overtime or not, that you end up having to either be overpaying your staff or underpaying your staff, because it will just pick up whatever value is there and just return it like it did the other time. So now when it checks, it sees that, okay, it checks the formula here. Does it meet with the formula here? All the things we've done, and then it returns you the final value. So that's why it's good to use that. So now that we've done that, and we're very certain that this is correct. So JP for 1 hour, obviously he still got 20, that's 24. Okay. If you multiply 24 times 1, that's 24. And then plus 1 rather, that's 24. And then 24 is the new rate. Remember when we first checked that 25 plus 24 plus 5, it gave the actual so it would go through and it would check everything and return the actual numbers of monetary value that you need to pay. Now, to obviously do the total pay, very easy to do. All you then need to do is the overtime pay just plus the standard. And then, so at the end of the day, this is what you need to, and then autofill. At the end of it, this is the total pay the finance department will be paying each of the staff at the end of the week. So what we're going to do is, okay, so, one of the ways we can actually put this $sign, so you can either highlight the column and then you go here and you select any of this, or you can even go down to more accounting formats and all that. Now, there's another way that is called Format Painter. So I'm going to teach you how to use Format Painter. Let's just say for quick references, you just don't want to go through that whole stress. Highlight whatever cell that meets your, the formatting style. Okay, because now I love the formatting style of this one. It's 2-digit number. It's got the $sign. I'm just going to click on that, and I'm just going to click on this format brush here on the clipboard, and I'm just going to come here, and then you see it's picks up that these are the things I want to change, and I'm just going to click on it and then just drag down so that it picks up everything and release my hand, and that's it. It formats everything for you as well. So yeah, that's how to. And then look, let's do for the pay. Let's try it one more time. I'm just gonna, you can click this one as well, it doesn't matter. Click this one, you can click on it, you can do it one by one if you want, but why do I want to do things one by one when I can actually do everything, right? So even this one that you've done as well, you can decide to also format paint it as well. Click on the next one you want to do, left click and drag down so that it picks up everything and release your hand, and it fills everything for you. So now everything looks clean. So at the end of the day, you can send this report now to Finansic, the total pay, that's the total pay for each employee and what you should be paying each employee who has worked in a period of 5 working days, and that's it. Voila. And it's very easy, right? Okay, so that brings us to the end of how to work on the payroll data sets. We'll be moving over to the next one. See you soon in the next class.